All right, so last week I did a video on 5 ways you're betraying your spouse and may not even be aware of it. And I thought to myself, why stop at 5? Let's do another 5. So this week I want to talk about 5 more signs of disloyalty in marriage and what to do about it. That's today on RelationShots. Hey, welcome to RelationShots. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome. And don't forget to download your free guide to intimacy. You'll see a link in the description area right below. This will take you through 4 areas of intimacy in your marriage: physical, spiritual, emotional, and recreational, and give you some ideas and thoughts on how you can increase connection in those areas. So, last week we talked about 5 ways you may be betraying your spouse in marriage and not even recognize it, may go unrecognized. And I said that relationship killers kind of show up in 2 main areas. And if you missed last week, let me give those to you again right now as well. Number 1, deception, either lying about something or not revealing your true needs to avoid unpleasant conflict. And number 2, unavailability. So one of you desires emotional connection from the other, but it seems to be unavailable or unattainable. That's usually what's at the heart of the things hurting and killing our relationship. But with trust, breaches of trust don't always show up in gigantic moments. Oftentimes they are done in little, ongoing, subtle interactions in the relationship. And so let me give you 5 signs of disloyalty in marriage. And if you're doing any of these things or you recognize any of these things, what I would say to you is do not ignore them. What this is an opportunity to recognize and discuss and attempt to repair the areas that are damaged in the relationship. So one way that we are disloyal in our relationship is called disrespect. Yes, and so I hear this word a lot, and some people think everything's disrespect, and other people minimize or don't think hardly anything is disrespect. And so this looks a little bit different for everybody, but the reality is disrespect is a breach of trust and is showing signs of disloyalty in your marriage. And what it basically means is that one person is doing things that imply or that allow them to see the other person as inferior, right? So if you think you are superior to your spouse and the way you show up is like that, your spouse will experience disrespect in the relationship. And so it can be overt things like name calling, like belittling, like telling somebody they're stupid, they don't know what they're doing. Or it can be subtle little things, eye rolls and huffs and little digs or dismissals. But the reality is that if you think that your partner is inferior to you, or you think you are superior in some area of the relationship, you're going to show up with some level of disrespect. So if your spouse is trying to convey to you they feel disrespected by how you engage with them, don't dismiss it because you're not, quote, trying to be disrespectful. Get curious and find out what is it about the words I use or the tone or how it's delivered or my facial expressions that feel like disrespect to you, so that if I'm not trying to disrespect you, I can eliminate those things in the relationship. So disrespect is a huge one. Number 2 is unfairness. Now, I know, so don't switch off already. Life's not fair, and relationships are never completely fair. But if one spouse feels like consistently the path of the relationship, the decisions in the relationship, and the dynamics of the relationship skews unfairly one way or the other, at some point they're going to feel betrayed in the relationship. So, if you always end up at one person's favorite restaurant or favorite choices, or if the money spent in the relationship supports one person's hobbies, but when it comes to the other one, it's like, no problem. Hey, man, I got a new set of golf clubs, man. No problem with that. But my wife wants a new treadmill. And I'm like, I don't know if we have the money for that. If that is a consistent pattern in the relationship, that unfairness is going to show up. We often see this in finances. So in the area of finances, sometimes you have one person who is tasked with managing, paying the bills, doing some of that kind of stuff. And if the other one never engages in conversations with them around it, at some point they will feel the sole heavy weight of the burden of the financial stuff, and at some point feel like it's unfair that I have to worry about this and stress about this and figure out how to pay bills, and we never have conversations about it. That can feel unfair. Or if one feels like they are carrying the weight of bringing the finances in, even if that's agreed upon. Certainly if it's not agreed upon and one just feels like the other is unwilling to do their part, but even if there's agreed upon, one decides to say stay home with the kids, but does not see what the other person's doing, does not express value in what they're doing. There's not conversations around what both are doing to further the vision that the couple has agreed upon. That unfairness can sit in there. And at some point, when you feel like it's unfair, you're going to feel betrayed in the relationship. A third way that we exhibit disloyalty is what I would call sexual withdrawal. And so clearly, this can occur for a lot of different reasons in the relationship, right? I mean, you got things like age, you got hormones, you got health issues, you got body image issues, you got stress, you got relational distress, you got children, you got work schedules and struggles. So it's not always punitive. Certainly when it's used as punishment and it's punitive, that's a huge betrayal and breach of trust in the relationship. But it's not always that. Sometimes it's just a lot of other things that get in the way. But at the end of the day, if one spouse is feeling the rejection and the hurt and the disappointment in this area, this is not an area to ignore. This is an area to discuss and talk about in an honest and loving way, so that it doesn't continue to serve as an area of feeling betrayed because my spouse has withdrawn something that is of interest to the other person. A fourth way that we show up disloyal in our relationships is breaking promises. Now, we talk a lot about lying and dishonesty and deceit and that kind of stuff, but breaking promises can be just as devastating to the trust in the relationship as outright lying, right? Because healthy marriages are built on mutual agreement and shared vision and kind of have an idea of where we're going. And so broken promises can destroy that, right? They may show up in big ways, like when we start having children and maybe one of you said, I'm for it here, and then you get somewhere down the road and they change their mind, decide something different. Maybe it's how we've decided to manage our finances, what we're going to save for. At some point, somebody changes their mind and says, I know we were saving for a house, but I really want this boat. Whatever it might be. So it could be big moments where we've agreed upon something and then somebody has decided to change unilaterally and break the promise and agreement that was made. But it often happens in all the little things. When you don't follow through on the thing that you said you would follow through. When you don't claim ownership of some area of the relationship that you have been tasked in mutual agreement to take ownership of, and you don't come through for your spouse, and so now they don't know if they can trust you in that area because you continually break promises. So broken promises can be huge areas. Broken promises can also be lots of little areas over time that just causes one spouse to feel like, I can't trust you in this area to know that you're going to come through in the way that you say you will come through for me in that area. And a fifth and final one is selfishness. Yeah, selfishness is not just annoying, but it can feel like a betrayal. The reality is that one of the key foundational components of a healthy marriage is selflessness. And so selfishness is going to fight against that. If you feel like when you get to a crossroads and your spouse has to choose something that's beneficial for them, or something that's beneficial for you or the marriage, and they consistently choose themselves, you're going to have a hard time trusting them in the relationship, right? Because we are going to have moments of sacrifice and moments of selflessness in our marriages if they're going to work well. That's a foundational key part of marriage. That's why for the majority of couples, there is a reported sharp decline in marital satisfaction at the birth of the first child. Why is that? Because we're selfish, right? We're not sleeping as well anymore, and we like our sleep. We don't have the free time we used to have. We have somebody now, a baby, who is a 24-hour-a-day project that never ends. And so oftentimes what freedom we used to have has now been taken away because one of us has to be present with our child at all times. And so we used to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do this tonight. You're going to do that tonight. Cool. I'll see you when we get back home. But now guess what? One of us has to stay home while the other one does what they're trying to do. So kids reveal our selfishness and marriage reveals our selfishness. And if you don't have a spouse who regularly can sacrifice or have moments of selflessness in a relationship, at some point that's going to be painful and you're going to feel betrayed because this other person who has committed so many things to you is now not fulfilling those commitments because they're just plain selfish. And so we may try to gloss over and overlook selfishness in a relationship, but the reality is that can feel like a huge act of disloyalty and betrayal when your spouse says, I'm more important than you are in this area, and so I choose me. So there you go. 5 more ways you or your spouse may be showing up and being disloyal in your marriage. And again, if any of these feel familiar or make you feel uneasy, please don't ignore. Have a conversation about them. None of these are fatal. This is the reality of humanity and marriages, but we do have to talk about them. We do have to be willing to talk about them in an honest and loving way so that we can correct some of them, so that we don't keep moving down a road of feeling betrayed, resentment building up, disconnection increasing, and getting to a place at some point where you just feel hopeless about the relationship. The way to avoid that is to address it. And if you need some outside help, get some outside help as well. I'd love to hear your comments on these 5 areas if you see those show up both in your life or in your spouse's life in the marriage and what you're doing about it. Drop a comment and I'll see you right back here next time.